How many people were fed by Jesus in Luke 9? This is the question that we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of Luke on Walking Through the Bible. If you have a Bible with you, turn to Luke chapter 9. We're going to be reading from verses 10 to 17. If you don't have a Bible, don't worry. Just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So, Luke chapter 9, beginning at verse 10. And the apostles, when they had returned, told him all that they had done. Then he took them and went aside privately into a deserted place belonging to the city of Bethsaida. But when the multitudes knew it, they followed him, and he received them and spoke to them about the kingdom of God, and healed those who had need of healing. When the day began to wear away, the 12 came and said to him, Send the multitude away, that they may go into the surrounding towns and country and lodge and get provisions, for we are in a deserted place here. But he said to them, You give them something to eat. And they said, We have no more than 5 loaves and 2 fish, unless we go and buy food for all these people. For there were about 5,000 men. Then he said to his disciples, Make them sit down in groups. And they did so, and made them all sit down. Then he took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, he blessed and broke them, and gave them to the disciples to set before the multitude. So they all ate and were filled, and 12 baskets of leftover fragments were taken up by them. In our last lesson, we had Jesus sending his disciples out on what we would call the limited commission. Now, when we read the Bible, we can do so quickly, and that means that the passage of time isn't that evident. Jesus didn't send his disciples out for a day or two. Some weeks, though not many months, have passed. So in verse 10, we had Jesus' disciples returning from the limited commission and telling Jesus all that they had done and preached. Jesus was pleased with their progress, so as a reward, he told them that they would go into a deserted place to rest for a while, a deserted place that Luke tells us belongs to Bethsaida, meaning that it was on the east side of the Sea of Galilee. However, the people of the coastal cities got wind of Jesus leaving, so they followed him to the other side. Jesus could have sent these people away, saying that his disciples had been out working and needed to rest, but no, he received them, preached about the kingdom of God, and healed those who were in need of healing. This should be an example for us as well, for sometimes when given the opportunity to teach the gospel, we find some earthly excuse why we can't. Jesus didn't do that here. These people needed to hear his preaching, so they preached. When the day was wearing away, meaning that it was drawing to a close, the disciples requested that Jesus send the people back to the villages in order to find food and a place to stay for the evening. Jesus told his disciples that there would be no need for that, for they would provide the food. Now, at this point of the story, all we know about the crowd is that there was a multitude. We aren't told how many there are. The disciples, though, knew that there were too many for them to feed, and come to Jesus saying that such would be impossible, for how could they feed such a multitude because they only had 5 loaves and 2 fish? Moreover, they wouldn't have had the money to go and buy enough food either. To us, feeding a multitude with so little food would be impossible, but for Jesus, who can heal the sick by the words of his mouth, nothing is impossible. He commanded the multitudes to sit down in groups of 50s, showing us again that this was not a small group of people. Jesus then gave thanks for the food and then sent out the disciples to feed the people. Not only was there enough food, but each person was fed until they were full. And not only that, there was food left over, 12 baskets full of fragments. This truly was an amazing miracle of Jesus, one that I'm sure took the disciples and the people by surprise, for Jesus could even multiply food so they all could eat. The total number of people who ate were 5,000 men, besides women and children. We call this the feeding of the 5,000, but there could be anywhere from 10 to 15,000 people here if we include women and children, making the miracle even more amazing. Now, some like to use this verse to teach that the church should provide food for the needy, and then use the opportunity to teach the gospel. But this passage doesn't speak of the church. It speaks of individuals doing this act of charity, nor is the purpose of performing this miracle to give an opportunity to teach the people. For Jesus performed this miracle because the people needed to eat, and night was soon falling, and some might not be able to make it home. In other words, Jesus performed this miracle not only out of compassion, but out of necessity for the needs of the people. This is not an example for the church to engage in the social gospel, but it is an example to show that Christians should be compassionate towards Christians and non-Christians alike. With that, our time is up for today. The Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of Luke chapter 9, verses 18 to 27, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time. Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends, so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.